Good morning, everyone. Welcome to calendar year end. It's the holiday time. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. And once again, here we are. It seems like time goes so fast. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Great. Okay, there we are. There's our HCC website, hccitc.org. And today's presentation will be shared on the finance and then drop down USAS accounting and inventory. And then we've got the checklist up there already. And then we will, that's where his checklist is. Software links and training. We'll go to the training recordings, and then we'll put it right up at the top. There it goes, right up under the specific topics right there. So that's where it will go when we're done today. And we're planning on the USAS portion being about 45 minutes. Then we'll have a half-hour break, and then USPS will start. So we'll just go ahead and dive in. And my my test system is the demo is like way back here, back in August 2021. They haven't updated yet at SSDT. So just keep that in mind when we're looking at dates. We're going to want to make it in reality 2024 instead of 2021. But for training purposes, it's back in the past. So here we go. 2-second lag there. So first, for our pre-closing procedures, I've talked with a few districts about filtering through their vendors and looking at their vendors. So this is basically, I don't think they've changed a thing on this since last year. So it should be pretty much identical, and districts should have this all set up, but we're just kind of repeat that for just informational sake. There is a setup on system configuration, the vendor tax ID number configuration. So that is going to be system configuration, zoom to the bottom, vendor tax ID number configuration. You can choose if, when you're entering a vendor, if you want a warning or not want a warning, and it should be, there we go. You can choose no warning, require for all vendors, require for only 1099 vendors. So that would be your error. And then your warning, same thing, but just a warning instead of a requirement. So if you don't have that set up, that might be something you want to think about. So here's an example of what you would get. So the one would be an error here, tax ID must be set, and the other is a warning. And then the first thing you want to do is review your vendors on your core vendor screen on that grid. And you'd want to check make sure your vendor number, your primary name, whether it's active or not. Under the 1099 drop down, you want to choose the type 1099. Under the tax ID drop down, you want tax ID type, ID number, year to date, taxable total, under amounts. So I've got that already configured. And so you're going to want to do, if you're filtering through the grid, you're going to want the less than greater than sign with a non-1099 to find all the vendors flagged as a 1099. That's using the grid filter. There's like 3 different ways to look for these. That will be core, vendors, in the way. So here under type 1099,
You've got the greater than, less than, greater than, non-1099. That just means things that are not a non-1099 vendor. So you've got different things for those that are selected. So attorney gross proceeds is one selection. It's showing your tax ID types if they're there. It's showing your socials if they're there. Year-to-date totals.
so that will show all of those there. And then after you do that, if you're looking for the ones that aren't royalties, then you want greater or equal to 600. I've worked with a couple of vendors with this, or I'm sorry, with a couple of districts with this. And sometimes we have to download everything to Excel and then filter there because we'll get a, like there's too many selections in the field. And so this can also be done in Excel data format in a report. So here we go, greater than or equal to 600. There we can see you have to put the equal or else it's gonna omit the ones that are actually 600 there at the bottom.
Right there. So if you don't put greater than or equal, it would omit those two, which you would need on there.
So that's using the grid. So there's everything there. There's another way to do this as well. These are the types that are there. So you can use the grid. You can also use a report. And then you can use the advanced query. So you could get the same results. There's like 3 ways to get it. It's kind of like Excel. There's a couple different ways to do things. So you can either use the grid for the selections, or clear that out. You can use the advanced query. And the nice thing about advanced query is these stay and it's per user. So if you have somebody else, sometimes positions change in a district, or you might want a treasurer looking at what a AP person's doing. If an AP person sets it, the treasurer won't be able to get it. So you can set these up. There's one for 1099. And then, so you've got your type 1099, not equals to non-1099. That's the same thing as the less than, greater than, non-1099 in the grid that we set up here. And then year-to-date taxable is greater or equal to 600. So we did the similar thing on the grid
When we had it listed right here.
So then you would take that and you would apply that. And then that is going to get you your selections down below here.
So that's going to, you're going to be able to find your 1099 vendors. That.
And then if you want to run a report, you can run a report right there. Take it into Excel, review it if you want. And then the other one for royalties, I've set that up as an advanced query. So
your type 1099 is going to be equal to, we've got a nice little delay here.
Well, are you connected? I'll try it again, see if it's picking up. There it goes.
Royalty payments, if you're just looking for royalties, and these are going to be $10 or higher. So you want to look at those
differently because the limit's less. If we apply that query, then
we'll come up with just a couple of those where it's going to filter on those royalty, just the royalties, and then it'll have the amounts there. So when you're looking through, you'll want to make sure, like this should probably be true. you know, if you've got some of that. And then your tax ID type, your ID number, that needs to be reviewed, filled in. So when you're doing your review of these, just kind of go through, make sure you've got, you know, those fields filled. So you'd need to go back through and go back through. You're going to need to have this, like that should be active. And fill in your type, your ID. You've got that it's a royalty payment. So you have to pull up your W-9, get that filled in, or request new ones from the vendors. It's a busy time of year, so the sooner the better. If you're missing information, to reach out to your vendors to get that. All right, and then after you've looked at your royalties and your regular 1099s, it's a good practice to go back and look at your non-1099 vendors, because you might find something. I've worked with a couple of districts recently on that, to just kind of go through what you've got, and it's like, yeah, they're incorporated, they should be a non-1099, but you know, oh, maybe we reimbursed her for mileage or him for a conference, or so, you know, the employee shouldn't be getting that. But maybe this Thelma Signs, maybe we need to look at that and review their W-9, kind of review those, make sure what they have for selections is what they need to have. We don't want to miss anyone that needs to be reported. So along with this, I also have a handout that I've given in the past. I'll attach it to the meeting invite and circulate it around. And there it is. Really like a 10-second delay on this. So this was all taken, almost all of it, from the irs.gov website. And I did that last year and reviewed it recently with one of the districts. And we kind of modified a little bit just for clarity and all that. So it's got kind of the different items about what should be on 1099 and what should not. And so, there we go. So the following, it's got who should get a 1099 NEC. So services performed by someone who is not your employee, including parts and materials, but this wouldn't be payments for merchandise, travel or mileage. Like for your employees, you're technically, I mean, it's usually like travel or mileage. But if you're buying merchandise, so one example, which I ran across in a district, is they were selling t-shirts. Somebody was making t-shirts up, and they're, you know, then the school was selling those. They weren't getting a 1099 because it was for merchandise. So, but maybe if somebody is coming to repair the dishwasher, you know, it's like you've got some dishwashers and food services that needs repaired. So that would have parts, materials, and labors. That would have a 1099 NEC if it's not an incorporated vendor. So you just kind of have to go through and analyze those. Another tricky one is the payments to the attorneys. So any payment for services, which is 600 or more, to a law firm, it doesn't even matter if they're corporate, LLC, LP, general partnership, or how large or small they are, the attorney firm needs to get that. And then an LLC will only get it if it's either a single member LLC or a partnership, not a corporation. So to make it hopefully a little bit simpler, I gave a copy of the form. It's just nice to, and it's like, okay, in the first number one, that should be on name one field in your vendor. number 2, that should be on the name to field. If this box is checked or that box is checked, they should get a 1099. Also, if it's an LLC and it's a partnership or a sole proprietor LLC, then they should get a 1099.
If you have questions, we always like to refer you to your tax professional. But in general, that's how it goes, and that's how it states it on the IRS website. So that's just reiterating when this scrolls up what we've gone over, who should be getting this. There it goes.
The MISC, that would be rents, royalties, gross proceeds, which would be like a settlement agreement for an attorney, not their general working fees. So usually what we see a lot with the, and the other one is the medical and healthcare services.
If you're paying, doctors, a group of doctors, a doctor partnership or something like that, they would get an MISC. So generally what we see a lot of these are if you're renting music for like the high school musical, that's where I see a lot of those, the MISCs there. We don't see a lot of the law firms that have the settlement agreement, but that doesn't mean it can't happen. But most of the time it's the royalties or the rents for the music, for musical productions is where we see a lot of that. And then we do see some medical and healthcare if you're paying that out. So we've got some other information there, but I'll circulate this one out. Okay, again, LLC will only get a 1099 if it's a single member LLC, just a one-man show, as I call it, or partnership. If it's an S corp, it won't receive a 1099. Also, if you have a deceased employee
And you have the 1099 for the estate, to the estate of John Doe, that would be, you would get a 1099 MISC. And then for an estate, you'd ignore the limits. So, and for an employee, for reimbursing for a purchase, maybe some classroom supplies, mileage or travel, that is not on a 1099. So if it's for a service, that should have gone through and be put on their W-2, like a miscellaneous pay or another position, compensation that's paid for. That should be there.
Anything else like a vehicle lease? I don't think we have too many of those, but I would say put in a ticket for that. Another thing which we discovered during the year
is, we used to say, they say never say always or never. Okay, and so we had employees should never be issued a 1099 in addition to a W-2. Now we came across an exception, and that was for someone who had done a service for the district, and then later on, the district hired that person as an employee. So they did their service in the same calendar year, and then they were hired on. So for that, it looks like that might be a 1099 and a W-2. So it wouldn't be never, and again, we just say contact your CPA
regarding how to handle that. Just refer to them. So I'll be handing that out, distributing that at the end. Including that after we're done with the presentation. All right. So back to where we're at here. For the medical and the healthcare.
So the payments to a physician, Physicians Corporation, Other suppliers of health and medical services, for medical assistance programs and all that, in excess of 600, that would be on a 1099 MISC.
All right, so again, we're back to looking at these, looking at the non-1099s, which we discussed. Look at those, filter your grid, or you can use your advanced query with that special advanced query, which we were talking about, and just review those to, you know, maybe see if some of these should
Really be, should it be a non-1099? Is this black topping? Is, you know, is that incorporated? You know, just review it, maybe check their W-9 form, see if their type needs to be changed. This one happens to have their EIN and their ID number on, so that's good.
But just kind of review things, make sure you got everything in there right. Dot your I's and cross your T's. So, and again, here we're talking about if you get an excessive query error, then you can just pull that in as a report in the Excel data format to review. You can use your sorts and filters in Excel to review those. I had a district recently where it was a ton of vendors to review. And we applied a couple of filters and it went down from like a couple thousand to like 125. And they were like, thank you so much. And I'm like, that's the beauty of Excel. So it might look daunting to begin with, but then we can probably filter it out. Okay. Another thing is inactivating vendors. So you can use the last activity date. You might have a lot of vendors that are still active, but you haven't paid them anything in a long time, and that's treasurer discretion, what date they want to use. And then you could go through, we can use a mass change for that. And hide that. And so you could use this last activity date up here. So maybe you want something, I just threw that in there. Well, maybe we already did that one. We'll just say, let's see if we can find something. Last plan 06/30. See if anything comes up with us. No. All right. It looks like we've already done this in another session in the past. See if we've got anything here. I think we're good. So maybe that's, you know, you're looking at those and it's like, okay, well, maybe, and these would all come up 0. You would want them all to be 0 if that's in the past, and then you'd inactivate who you want to inactivate. That also kind of limits the list of what you're looking at. So another way of looking at them is to use the 1099 report. So we've looked through the grid, we've looked through advanced query, and then another option is the 1099 vendor report. And that's under report manager. I think just about every district I've made this have a tag of 1099.
Waiting for that to go. There it is. Okay. So in the tag column, you would just put in 1099. This should pop up, and then you can generate that.
Go right there. And then, so your year-to-date taxable total greater than or equal to 600. And then it's going to run all the types. So if you run that report, you'll get this right here. to go get a cup of coffee or something. Yeah, it says I'm sharing the screen. There it is.
All right. So it's going to give you your non-employee compensations and your vendor numbers. You know, it's got your address. That's another thing. Check for your address. Oh, maybe we're missing a state or something. Make sure everything's there. And then you can get your, if you don't have these, that kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. And then you're either going to want to refer back to the W-9 that they sent you or contact that vendor for their W-9 information, new W-9. We can see that these need to be sent out a 1099 this year. So you're going to want to contact these guys, get their information if it's missing.
I kind of like using Excel and that report. That's kind of like my favorite way to do it. All right, so this is done all during December. Make sure everything's complete and ready to go for the end of the year because you don't want to be doing this in January. Here we go. Those are the fields. That'll be coming up there pretty soon. Okay. If there are any adjustments which need to be made, that can be done in the vendors, the core vendors, and you have to use the view and not the edit to do the adjustments. And then you want to make sure that the taxable box is checked to update year-to-date taxable, so that will pull in. So I don't think we have a lot that would need to be changed. One big item was usually the prior year check that had to be replaced and was, you avoided one and issued one this year. And so that would be one. Here's an example when it scrolls up here of how that would be done. But so here's a check that was from last year, was replaced. And, they put in that to reduce the amount because it's going to add it on. The new check, it's going to add it on, but it really shouldn't be. And that's in the vendor adjustments. That's in core vendors. So. There's it. So then you'd hit the view instead of the edit. And then you'd hit this vendor adjustment right here to make that adjustment. Create. Stuck in 2021. So you'd enter maybe do your description like we did on that handout where it's like, this was a reissued check. It was voided and reissued from last year to this year. Put in your amount and then you just hit post. That will update all your amounts. Negative there. And then you post that. And then that would update your amounts in there. So, okay. All right, so that's reviewing adjustments. And then I went over the procedure. Okay. And then you're just going to be going on with your regular old month-end procedures.
That doesn't change.
That goes reconciling your bank statement, making sure your cash summary, fin debt, the month-to-date totals, 408. If you want any other extra reports, I know there's at least one district that wanted me to add some extra reports when they closed out December. They wanted me to add those into the calendar year reports. So one example here was this.
The SM12, the spending plan summary. We can create
A extra report bundle just for extra reports if you want anything special in the calendar year end reports. I think there was like a vendor one that's also popular. A vendor listing, vendor master listing. That's a popular one. We can do that. We can create that bundle. And if you want anything out of the ordinary, we can add that in there. And that'll add that to your calendar year end. Come on, computer. It's very, very slow. You did not want to go to that screen. Okay. So then you'll want to do your calendar year end closing. I'm just going to kind of shoot this out there for just an informational. There is something called a proration utility that you can use. One thing that, as an example, is the workers' comp. If you want to get your workers' comp amount and then you want to base it on your salaries, it can do that. It can prorate that, and then you'll go back and change your object code for what the workers' comp should be, and you can download that and then load it in as a PO. So if you want to do it, we only had a couple districts do that. You can. So that's under utilities. There we go. Proration utility. There it is. And then you would apply, it'd be like calendar year to date, and then you would apply a filter. If you had like a workers' comp. No. There's a workers' comp. And then you could name it workers' comp. And of course, because this is 2021, we do that. And then you can create that. And then in this cell, this B2, then we're just going to throw in an amount. Just to throw it in there.
just in this B1 cell. You'd put that in, and then it'll tell you your actual calendar year to date.
And then you would, I don't know, I might have to keep that small. It'll give you proration percent.
So that's your actual amount for the count number. It'll give you your percentage and then your prorated amount for your 10,000. And then you can either download it or create a POCSV, and then you would have to change your codes. Maybe find and replace would be a great command to use. And find and replace for the workers' comp code, and then you can use that POCSV
And import that into your PO. But make sure, we had a few
who did this, and you just want to double check that your prorated amount total actually equals the 10,000.
to create that, and then you would go into your purchase orders. And then you would import that here. You choose your CSV file and load it in. We had a couple districts do it, not a lot. But I just want to throw it out there as an option if you want to do that. Put in a ticket if you want to do that. We can review it, see if you want to do that or not. So,
Not sure what I did.
pardon? All right, one thing on the code mapping for the proration utility, you can't use the between function. We ran into this in the past.
And you can't use 111.139. You would have to use 11%, 12%, 13%
instead, if you're mapping those. So now we've looked at our vendors, we've gone through those, we've got everything as good as we're going to get them. For the vendors that respond, we're going to create our 1099s. You're going to go into the periodic 1099 extracts, do the 2024. You can actually do both files at once. We'll need the tape file, and then you can actually print these out as PDF and print those onto our forms. So the deadlines are January 31st.
And then for the tape file, HCC will need that by January 17th. I believe that's right after Martin Luther King Day, isn't it? Isn't that after the Martin Luther King holiday? Yeah. Anita's nodding yes. Yeah, so we need that. Our system manager goes through those files, making sure there's
Nothing odd that we can see. And then if there is, then we'll get back to the district. They'll need to create another file, get that to us. So we just need the time in order to do that by the deadline for submission. So you would go in, and then you're also going to do your printer sealer copies. So that is under periodic 1099 extracts. Wait for it to catch up. There it is, periodic 1099 extracts.
And then you can do both at the same time. You can do the 1099 NEC. You can check both of those, leave it IRS format. You've got your 600 for the regular and the 10 for the royalty. You want to make sure you leave this submission type as original. There are correction forms that are also selections, but the first time through, we definitely want original. And then also you need to put in the phone number for contact, or it's going to give you an error.
So if I just do this right now, and I leave that phone number out, print 1099 report, there it goes. There's the error. So I'll just go ahead and throw in phone number. Phone number here, and then print the report. So it's generating both the MISC and the NEC report.
There's the NEC report. I want to make sure I reviewed that. Sure, I've got the numbers in there. Everything on there looks good. Type of vendor, the amount. Let's go through that.
Yeah, make sure it's good. And then also with, that's that one, that's that one. There's the miscellaneous, that's coming up.
Okay. And so here we go. Hello, Big Time Attorneys LLP. They've got their number in there, their address, what type of 1099 it is for the MISC and the amount. I'm gonna just want to review that. So that's your 1099 report. And I believe every time you run it, it will create it in your calendar year-end file. And then when you're ready to do your printer sealer copies, you reviewed everything and that's good. There is an option to truncate your TIN. So it's just going to give you your last 4 and then the rest will be like the X's through that. That's an option if you want. I would always suggest unchecking this box for excluding the vendors with no tax ID just in case. And then you can go ahead and generate. So this is the forms. Printer sealer copies. If you want the TINs truncated, you can do that. Let's go ahead and check that. Uncheck the vendors with no tax ID and generate those. And it just does both at one fell swoop. Both of them are generated at one time. And here's your forms right here. And then with the forms that we give you, then you would just copy those on there. And we always like to suggest when you go to print these, just to double check that for the pages, maybe you want to do, just check it out. You just do the first page. Just maybe check it. Make sure you've got it, the paper oriented right in the printer. And then just do the first page. Check that. If it's looking good, then you can do the rest of the pages or do the whole thing again. Just don't send the first one out twice. So, and then you'll do the same thing for, let's see, NECs. You do the same thing for, these are the MISCs. Here's the MISCs, the NECs. And then the next one coming up should be the MISCs. Same thing. You don't usually have a lot of MISCs, but I always say, yeah, just test it out, print one, and then if it comes out oriented correctly and looking good, it's on the right side of the paper and all that kind of stuff, then go ahead and print out the rest of them. All right. And then, so that's the forms. And then for the tape, that one, there it is. The tape report, that's what we need. And we will submit your federal and state copies. So that one is the IRS format. And then you generate it instead of doing the report. Yeah. IRS format and generate, that's the tape one. And that will do both. And that is 1099 both, and that's the tape. And this is the one that you send up to ShareBase. And we'll be sending that link out for those soon. So that's the one that you send to HCC. Notify us by a ticket so that we know we can just check that list, and then that'll be all set. And the nice thing is you can do 2 at one fell swoop. Okay. And we've got some screenshots showing the different things. You have to have your phone number. Leave it as the format. You can check both boxes, that type of thing to help you out remembering what goes, what you click and what you fill in and all that. We've got a little screenshot there for that.
make sure when you do these that December is open and current. And then when you choose the truncate, it's going to be like that asterisk. It'll have like the little asterisks there and the dashes. That's how it would turn out if you choose to do that. All right. When you send the files to us, please do not send them in an email. Please use the ticket, or you can use like either logging into the help desk and then attaching the file to us if you need to send those to us. Uploading to ShareBase. ShareBase is a protected link.
Will you be sending those links out again?
Yes. Yeah, we'll do it. We want to do the presentation first. So it's like, okay, we had the presentation on December 4th, and then the email for the ShareBase is also on December 4th. You know, you're like, kind of keep it together there. And then if you need any other copies, you can produce those as well. And those are reference copies. And then you get that extra link.
So when you do reference copies, then you get this extra 1099.
And there's different ones. Copy 1, copy 2, copy A, B, and C. Here it goes. Copy 1, 2, A, B, and C. And then that's what they're all for. Okay. And the main reason everybody shows up today is we have your forms and they're right upstairs. So when we're done here, we've got about a couple minutes, maybe like 20 minutes or so, where we can give those out to you. You can take both the 1099s and the W-2 forms, and just coordinate for your district. I'm sure you've already done that, but they're upstairs, and we'll go ahead and check you off on that. And then after that, after you've got everything printed out, you go to your core posting periods, you create January for 2025, and then close your December. Make sure your December is current. When you do this, I make sure in your file archive that all your reports have been printed out. So all of your, I'm not sure if it's going to do this because it is a test instance, but we'll see. Yeah, it has. Okay. No, it has not yet. Because it's probably a test instance. We had the vendor merge. That's the other thing is in the calendar year file archive. It's also, if you merged any vendors, and I've done that with a couple of districts, that's going to be stored here as well. So usually districts store that in a separate audit file. If they're merging vendors together, they're also in your calendar year end file in your file archive. But your 1099 reports and files should all be in your calendar year.
It's just mine isn't because it's a demo file.
All right. So in your calendar year end,
Here are all of the reports that should be in there for the entire year. So you've got your 1099 extracts, what you're printing your forms from, NEC, MISC. You've got your tape files, an XML file, the vendor reports, and all the these different kind of regular reports, but they're for the entire year. I think they add in like the transfer, the fund-to-fund transfers and things like that. Maybe the error correction support or error corrections reports in there as well. And then you can also add, if you want, other reports like we discussed, but you'll need to create a separate report bundle for that.
if you want like a vendor master or something like that. All right. And then if you want to reprint a 1099, you can go to that file archive. You can open up that file, double check that sometimes districts, it's like, oh,
I'm looking at it, oh, I need to change something. So they might have several versions. Scroll to the right and then the timestamp is over here. But usually when you see it initially, you can't see that timestamp. So scroll all the way to the bottom, scroll to the right so you can see the timestamp and make sure you're picking the right file for the right date that you want. Then you'd open that up.
scroll to the person you want to reprint, and then just print that one page. Right. If you want your 1099 stored and on base, we can do that. Just give us a call. We'll make sure we get arranged for that. Those are usually your reference copies, copy B, that we store. And then those would need to be uploaded into a ticket because of the EINs and the socials. Okay. Oh, I actually gave a share base link for that, but then also do a ticket right there. All right. So that covers it. We want to just remind you that we will be closed December 24th, 25th, December 31st, and January 1st. Entering a help desk ticket is the very best way to reach us. If you email someone, they may or may not be there, or they might be working on a problem which is very detailed and long, and we want to help you as quickly as we can. So putting in that finance ticket either through the help desk or by the email here, that's the best way. There's our main line, Tanya, Sandra, who's usually working Mondays and Wednesdays, and myself. That's our contact information. All right. I went a little bit over.
That's all right. We got time.
I'm blaming the screen because it
It is
had a
very-
bit of a delay. Yeah.
Very light.
So we'll go ahead and we're gonna stop sharing here, and we're gonna pause it for a little bit. And I'm gonna go upstairs and hand out forms for those that want to load up their forms. All right, we are going to go over the USPS calendar year-end checklist. And I'm sorry to all of you. It's 21 pages. It was only 16 until I changed it from legal to letter. The reason it's this long is because it's a very detailed checklist. Don't look at it and go, oh my God, I can't do this. It's very detailed. We put a lot of notes in here. We spell out like every option. So that's why it's so long. But also at the same time, there's a lot of important information in here that we often get questions on. And it's like, well, it was in the checklist. So please read it. There's a lots of notes of things that have to be done at certain times. So please follow the checklist. I would say go in order. There might be a few things here and there that you can skip. You can run a January payroll before you're running your W-2s. I would recommend balancing your W-2s and making sure it's all good before moving into January. Let's not wait till January 15th and realize 2024 is messed up. So let's try to be proactive here. All right, with that said, we will start with, this is like the one change this year, and it's optional. You can now create a W-2 Social Security number verification submission. You do have to have a business services online account that you can access in order to upload this file. This was available if you were in Classic. I personally have never ever done this, so can I tell you exactly? I mean, you download the file out of USPS, and then you upload it into the BSO website. They will create a file, and you then upload it back into USPS, and it'll tell you if there's any
issues. So I'll walk through it real fast, at least the USPS part of it. It is under reports, W-2 SSN verification, and you will create the submission file. It's very simple. You hit a button. This generates a file that you then upload into BSO. That's where I can't help you. I'm glad to look at it with you online, but I can't sit here and tell you how to do it. You upload it there, they create another file that you then download, and then you would upload it back here under the results report. You upload it, and then you choose the file, and then you generate it, and it will give you results. So it'll tell you if there's an issue with their security number or the name. Some of the big ones are their name is James, and you put in Jimmy. You know, things like that, because they go by something different than what's on the social security card. I think anymore, most people are getting copies of that social security card, and that's what they're putting in the USPS. That would be my recommendation. So that is optional. You do not have to do that. That is up to you if you want to go through that, but you do have to have the BSO login. All right. Now I'm going to get on my high horse. If you hear nothing else today, please run your NC1s through payroll. Yes?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
NC1 is your life insurance board paid over $50,000. So if your staff have a board paid life insurance that is over $50,000, you have to process an NC1 on that. It is so much easier if you run it through the payroll system, so it will process. See that? We're on it. If you run it through the payroll process, so it can hit the Medicare taxes. You can fix it after the fact. You don't want to. It just it creates this issue with Medicare, and it's just not fun to clean up. So if you do nothing else, make yourself a big fat note to run your NC1 when you get back to the office. Make sure it's on your next payroll. Every year we have, and it's easy to forget, you know, especially when it's a sudden thing, like somebody suddenly leaves. But yeah, we do have a calculator on our website. If you need that, if you don't have your own. We have lots of notes about how to process this if you don't do it through the payroll, and how to do it through the payroll, but it's very simple to run it through payroll. It's just payments, nope. Payroll, payments, current, nope, future. You create, just like you would any other future pay entry. The pay type is life insurance premium. Please do not use non-cash taxable benefit. That is not the correct one. It's life insurance premium. And then you would just put, I usually did a unit of 1 and whatever the rate is, whatever you need to charge them. They will get Medicare tax only, and it inflates the gross on the W-2 for federal and state. But they are taxed on it when they file their taxes, not at the time you process their payroll. So the only increase or the only change I see on their check is their Medicare tax goes up. I'm an employee every year. I'm a Medicare tax change. NC1, that's why. You can mass load these as well if you're a district that has all of your employees over $50,000. You can. We do have a template where you can mass load it in.
You have to ask for that.
Yep. Send us a ticket. We'll send you. It's the same as the future pay mass load, but we can definitely help you with that. So that's the first like 2 pages. It's all talking about NC1. If you forget to process it through your payroll and you need help adjusting it, please just call us. It's a tedious process. We'll walk through it together. I have a guide, but even that is still challenging. Okay. Already on page 3. Adoption assistance, not super common, but it was an NC2. You would enter that in future pay just like you would the NC1, except the pay type is adoption assistance. And again, it will do all the taxes that it needs to do. Reimbursable employee expenses. I don't like to talk a lot about this because over the years I've learned a lot, and different districts do it different ways and they interpret the IRS code differently. And so I do a lot of contact your attorney on this one. But the common one for this is tuition reimbursement over 5,250, I think is the dollar amount, is usually taxable. And then anymore, we have a lot of gift cards through like wellness benefits and those sorts of things. Oftentimes people are just processing those as an NC3 through payroll. But what the NC3 does and what I probably would do the NC3, but it does tax differently than other options you have. So if you have any of these and you don't have a system already that you do, if you've always done it one way, stick to that. I'm not telling you to change that. But if it's new to you this year, then just contact us and let's talk about the different options. There's actually a very long article on SSDT's website of all the various options about reimbursable employee expenses. So yeah, we'll just look at it as the time comes. Okay, you need to make sure that your OSDI code is set up correctly in your payroll item configuration. If you haven't added any this year, you're probably good from last year, but you're going to go to Core, Payroll Item Configuration. Wait for my screen to catch up. There we go. In the type, you can filter for OSDI. And what you want to see is under the W-2 abbreviation that I can't highlight. You want to see the OSDI code followed by the school name if you have it available to you. So if it just says OSDI tax, you want to update that. So say 1, 2, 3, 4 Ripley. I don't know. First thing that came to my mind. I think next is the city tax. Let's see. Yeah, so city tax. You want to make sure that you, in the W-2 abbreviation, that you have the city. So again, you can filter by city. And so in the W-2 abbreviation, you see here, I have Westerville. So whatever that city is, that way it shows up on the bottom of the W-2 with the city name. Tax entity codes. So this one is a little, you don't have to have it unless you are filing your city taxes electronically. So if you are submitting the our city tax reports that we will talk about later on, you don't have to have this. So only if you're generating a file, like City of Cincinnati is probably a big one because over 100 employees, you have to submit that electronically. So that is under, unfortunately, you can't add it to your grid here, but you just go into view and you've got this tax entity code right here. So you do want to make sure that's populated if you're filing electronically. Okay, if you have RETA, which I'm sure most of you do, cities that are paid through RETA, you want to make sure that the tax entity code is set up, that you have the RETA 3-digit code, which you can find on RETA's website, and the description. So that is under, so on a city tax, you have CCA up here. But then down here, you've got the RETA. This is going to be your 3-digit code. And then this is going to be your description. Make sure those are populated. I'm not going to review the CCA. I know we now have one district that has a CCA city, and I will work with them directly. because it's a lot. I have added it back into the checklist. It was gone forever, but it's back now. I've heard nothing but horror stories. That should be fun. Okay. HSA, you want to make sure that if you have employees that are contributing to an HSA, you want to make sure that the HSA deduction code is set up correctly. The annuity type should be set to other. So again, this is in payroll item configuration, and you can find it. Health savings account, and the annuity type right here should be set to other. If your board contributes to the HSA, but that is not processed through payroll, meaning that it's being ran through accounts payable, that needs to be loaded into USPS so it populates the HSA amount on their W-2. This can be mass loaded. I got the wrong date in here. So it's under core adjustments. So if you only had a few of them, you could do core adjustments. But if you have a lot, we can create a spreadsheet to get those loaded. But it does need to be on there because it goes into their box 12. So it would just be, I'll show you real fast if you need to add it. It's just core adjustments. You would create, find your employee.
Hang on, it's catching up.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
1 moment, please.
Please. All right. You would find your HSA deduction code. Oh gosh, I don't even know what it is.
Is it 650?
Well, but I don't know if this person has it. This is, anyways, on your type, it would be board's amount. And then you'd put in the amount that the board contributed. And all of that is detailed out on the checklist, exactly what to put in each of those fields. Come on. All right, next up is month-end closing. I'm not going to go over that. You do it 11 other times a year.
I do want to raise something. We have some districts that don't actually close their month out. So you definitely want to make sure that you go through the steps for month-end closing and close out your month in your fiscal periods.
Yeah, you want to close your posting periods. We've talked to a lot of people about when the best time is for payroll to close their posting periods, because sometimes you need to keep it open for the next month, depending on your pay dates and whatnot. But when you close those posting periods, it sets off reports that go into your file archive that are very beneficial if you ever need to go back. The leave balance report is a big one, because if you close July in September, it's giving you September information, not the July information. So just getting into the habit of closing those in a timely fashion is helpful, especially closing June and December, because there's a lot of reports that get generated when you close those months.
And make sure December's current.
Yeah. And you can always reopen months. If you close it and you're like, oh crap, I need to do whatever it is, you can reopen it. It's not the end all be all. Quarterly. Again, you do this several other times a year. You can start running your quarter report. Hopefully you're running that frequently. But go ahead and run it. Look for discrepancies. Look for if you have the calculated adjusted gross different from total adjusted gross, that could indicate an issue. There's a couple of things that could cause it. If you had a deceased employee, that is the amount that you paid to the estate will cause that. Another big one that we find is if you had and I don't know how common this is anymore, but if you had an annuity item for an employee that came out in January and you were like, oh, oops, I should have refunded that. So you refund it and then you put a stop date on it of December, it can cause problems with your quarter report. So that stop date needs to be after the date that it was last withheld, even if you refunded it. So just a couple things to look for on your quarter report. You should be balancing it with your W-2 report. Again, say this every time I get up here and talk. I suggest running your W-2 report monthly. Just run it and look for errors. It's way easier to fix it right after it happens than 3 months from now when you're like, I don't know what I did. So it takes 5-15 minutes, run it and look for errors. Because you can run the W-2 report specifically for errors, or you can run the full thing and just type in errors. Do a control find to find the errors. It's definitely a time saver. It may not seem like that when you're doing it. All right, so 14, it's just that. Go ahead and run your W-2 report. Run your quarter report, your W-2 report. And on the W-2 report, you're looking at the very last page. The last 2 pages look like totals, but the second to last page is actually only people that do not have Medicare. So you don't want that one. If you start trying to balance to that one, you're going to call me and say, oh my God, I don't balance. You want the very last page, and it's called the report summary. I talked about that in number 14 here. So again, you can run that W-2 report and search for errors. So it's under reports, W-2 reports, and then the W-2 report and submission. You want to make sure you're on report. Make sure you've got the right report year, 2024. For the purposes of running the report, it doesn't matter whether or not you include the fringe benefits. If that's more for the running of W-2s. But you only care about reports. You can actually click this box that says report employees with errors only. I personally would probably run the whole thing and do a control find for the word error or warning. So all of my people have warnings. Gotta love demos. There we go. So, and then the very last page. So here is my second to last page. So the employee type summary is not the one you want to balance to. It's not going to give you the information you need. You want to scroll down to the last page, and it actually says report summary.
That's it?
Yeah, it does. There we go. So that's the page you want to balance to. Your federal gross should match the gross from all your pay reports. So the federal total gross on the W-2 report should match all of the gross from your pay reports. I think most of you have a spreadsheet where you're tracking that every month or every pay. If not, I suggest that you do that. It will, the federal gross on the W-2 report does include Medicare pickup. So if you have Medicare pickup, that inflates the total gross on the W-2 report, but not the quarter report. And there's a little blurb about that. Some other things that's going to impact your W-2 report, dependent care benefits, fringe benefits, the Medicare pickup, taxable third-party sick pay, use of company vehicle, and employee expense reimbursements. So those sorts of things can throw that off. So I would say just have yourself a little note of what all of those equal so you can balance. You do want to make sure after your final payroll 2024 that you all of your payables have been paid. So you just want to go to process outstanding payables, and you want to make sure this is cleared out. Not in my demo, but you want to make sure that's cleared to make sure that you didn't miss paying like your quarterly payments, or if you happen to have anything that's yearly. I don't think anybody has that, but. Number 18, this is not when this has to be done. It's a reminder that you need to complete and file all of your quarter and year end reconciliations, federal, state, cities. That's just a reminder to do that. For your city taxes, generally, this doesn't always hold true, but generally you should be able to take the gross times the tax rate and get the amount that was withheld. So their applicable gross for the city times the 1% tax rate or whatever should equal their amount withheld. And there's a lot of ways you can check that. We could run reports and do Excel and whatnot. And this, like I said, this doesn't always hold true, but your ODJFS report, you can start running that, looking at that, make sure you're balancing. If you are seeing people, it's likely because their ODJFS reportable box was not checked on their employee screen. So that's under the employee screen. And so the ODJFS reportable right here, that needs to be checked. The people that aren't reportable at ODJFS are like your student workers and your board members, but basically everybody else needs to be reportable. If you fail to check that box and then run a payroll and then realize you didn't check it and go back and check it, it does not fix your ODJFS report. You do have to do an adjustment under core adjustments for that gross amount. It'll fix it moving forward, but it won't go back in time. If you have people showing up on your ODJFS report that has been long gone and they're showing up with weeks but no wages, check their calendar stop date on their compensation. Make that a habit as people leave, enter their calendar stop dates to prevent that from happening. If they're showing up with wages and no weeks, make sure they have a calendar start date. So those calendar start and stop dates are important. Once you have everything completed on your ODJFS report, as always, you'll upload it to the ShareBase link that I have a note to send out on Friday. And all those notes are there too. Okay, 23 is the OPSI report. If you are a district that has OPSI as your union, after the first of the year, they always ask you for all this information, including gross wages from prior calendar year. There is an OPSI report, and there's a very basic template of it on SSDT's website. But a lot of you have customized these, and so it's probably in your report manager. For, maybe we've got it filtered for your specific deduction code, or we've added information that you want to have on it. If you don't have that report and you would like it, we can give you the template and then we can work with it and see what you need. SSDT made a really, really big deal about this needs to be done before you close the year, but in my experience, you can always make December current and get that information again, but err on the side of caution and run it after your last payroll. Okay. Now we're to W-2 processing. Again, at this point in time, we're running it, we're checking it, we're verifying it. This is not the end all be all. So we reviewed this, but so again, that's reports, W-2 report and submission, and you're just gonna make sure that you are on the report. And after you generate it, you're gonna review all of it. You're gonna search for warnings and errors and clean those up if necessary. You're gonna balance your totals. All of your taxes are. I'll wait for you. All of your taxes, your amount withheld, your taxable gross, your total gross, all of those are on there. So you do want to balance those. Again, I would recommend having a spreadsheet that you've kept all year long and been keeping track of and balancing as you go along. I would say if there's discrepancies, you know, we can talk about it. One of the big ones I see, if you are tracking it on your own personal spreadsheet, one of the big ones that causes problems is if you void a check, but you fail to put that on your spreadsheet, that will cause discrepancies. Refunds, depending on what you've done, if it's an annuity, can cause discrepancies on a spreadsheet that you're personally keeping if you're not updating that. If you have dependent care and it's being processed through payroll, so they are, you know, submitting money to a dependent care, yeah. You want to make sure that your payroll item is set up under dependent care. If not, you do need to do an adjustment, which is listed here underneath 25 on how to do that. But as long as your dependent care is set up correctly on payroll item configuration, should be good. Third-party sick pay. You would receive something from the third-party administrator. Sometimes it's taxable, sometimes it's not. In my experience, if it is a post-tax payroll item, then it's not taxable when they get the sick pay. But if it's annuitized, and I don't know that I've run into anybody that had it annuitized, then it becomes taxable. So we have a whole document on it. If you don't know whether or not it's taxable, I always say contact the third-party administrator, your American Fidelity or whoever, and check with them. And then we can talk about the adjustments. Are we caught up? Nope, we're not. Come on.
Coffee break.
All right, 28 is fringe benefits. This is one of those ones where I just hate to get up here and spout too much off about it because I've learned more about fringe benefits as it's becoming more and more common and how it should be dealt with. And there is definitely a disconnect between what has been preached in the past and what the IRS website says. If you just simply put it in as a fringe benefit, as 28 talks about, it increases their federal and state gross on their W-2, but it does not touch Medicare tax. And if you do any amount of reading on the IRS website, it does tell you it's subject to Medicare tax. So I'll let you all make that call. I'm not going to make that call for you. If you want it to be subject to Medicare tax, then if you process it as an NC3, it will hit all of the taxes. So again, if you have those situations, let's talk about it. Put in a ticket. Let's just discuss the different options. So that would be 28 and 29.
And Lori Wood had a question.
Yeah, can you read me what it says?
Yeah. When are the third-party providers required to send notice of these payments? What if we don't get them before we close the year?
That's an excellent question that I don't have the answer to. I can remember it happening last year. People are getting them in January and February. I don't have a good answer for you other than to ask your legal counsel what they would advise you to do.
Is that us? I don't know if that's us or the front door. Is that the front door?
I don't know. I don't know enough about it.
Easy, easy.
I'm sorry. Just take it. Oh, it's missed.
Well, I know they've got theirs going on here.
Okay. Let me go check. I'm sorry.
Just close that curtain, turn that down.
Yeah, so I don't know what you do when they miss it. I really I don't know. I can tell you what some districts have done, but I won't. Okay, your employer health coverage. You're all running that through payroll as long as you have it set up that it's an employer sponsored health coverage on the payroll item configuration. You are good. See if I can find it. No, we'll just look at one of these. So you have this box here that says employer health coverage. You would want to make sure that that box is checked. So because it does show up on their W-2. If you have individuals who, for some reason, were paying directly to you versus having it processed through payroll because maybe they were out on leave and they still wanted their insurance and so they were paying directly, you really should add those using the core adjustments that we've outlined here on step 30. So it shows up on their W-2 to show their complete health coverage amount. So this one is just core adjustments. I forget that you guys are in a lag and I'm just when under core adjustments, you would hit create and then your payroll item is actually the federal. So it's going to be the 001 and then your type is health insurance. And again, it's all spelled out right there for you. So even without seeing it, you should be able to walk through that. We do have a note. If you need to do that, it adds to the amount that's already going to show up. It does not override it. So if they paid $400 to you, you just want to put in the adjustment at $400.
Nobody did that.
If you have vehicle lease information, or if you need to enter a vehicle lease, that is outlined in step 31 there. It's a core adjustment. Again, payroll item is going to be your federal, and then your type is a vehicle lease. Okay, so at this point, your W-2 should be good. You should have entered all of your extra stuff, done all of your checking, and you're ready to start working on your actual submission file. So the first thing you're going to do before you create your submission file is you're going to run that report one final time and verify it. Make sure it all looks good. Hopefully that's your 20th time looking at it and you're good with it. Then you're going to step 34 is creating the actual tape file. So when you do that, I will wait for it to catch up here, hopefully. So again, that's reports, W-2 reports, and then your W-2 report and submission. It doesn't want to go to my browser at all.
Yeah, I had that click off of it and on it again. There it goes. Yeah.
Yeah, now it's probably gonna jump. All right. So when you are ready for your actual submission, you're going to click on the little bubble here for this submission. You need to fill in, most of this stuff repopulates. You want to make sure that your report year is correct. You do have sort options. As far as the submission goes, it doesn't really much matter what your sort options are because it's just the file that we submit. You're going to put in your contact information down at the bottom, and you're going to generate the SSA W-2 submission file. That creates your tape file that you will upload to the share-based link that we will send out, and we submit it for you. So we will submit your W-2 file to the IRS, Social Security, and Ohio. All right, step 35 is your W-2, your Ohio submission. So again, we're back in W-2 report. Oh my gosh. There we go. At the top of your screen there, you have different tabs. So at this point, you're going to want the W-2 state options. Let me back up for a minute. I totally missed the huge step that people are going to miss for sure. Sorry. It's in my notes. It is noted in there. I'm just not reading the checklist. Before you run your W-2 submission, you want to make sure that you go to System Configuration. This is noted. And you want W-2 configuration. You want to make sure that this box at the very top here that says district will submit own W-2s, that box should not be checked when you run your federal and your state submission file. We'll talk later that there could come a point in time where you need to check that box, but for federal and state, it cannot be checked. If you have it checked and you submit that file, we are going to make you run it again. Did everybody get that? While we're in here, you also have the box to include only the last 4 digits of their social security. I highly recommend that you do that. This is only for printed copies only, copies that go out to the ESS. That way we're not sending out personal information. So I did look it up last year because somebody asked me if it was required to be on the W-2. It is not. You do not have to have the full social security number on the W-2. So I recommend checking that box. Hopefully most of you have it checked from last year and it will remain the same. But before you run your W-2 submission file, please make sure that this box is unchecked. Okay. Back to Ohio.
OH.
I know. Okay, so you have your state options over here. It's going to default to Ohio being checked, I believe, for most people. And all of this is pulling from the organization screen. Make sure your report year is correct. Double check these. They should be right unless you had a change throughout the year. But contact information and then generate the Ohio W-2 submission file. This creates a tape file that you upload to the share base that we will submit for you. Okay. So that was 35. And there is a big note that tells you to go under the configuration and make sure that that box is not checked. So at this point, we're going to start talking about running your other states, Kentucky, Indiana, Rita, or any cities that you do electronically. If you submit these electronically, so if you are creating a tape file for Rita, you want to have that box checked now. That's my big blue star, read me, attention, blah, blah, blah. You do need to make sure that it is checked. And again, I've noted it again right here. So if you have Kentucky, Indiana, Rita cities, we'll talk about Kentucky and Indiana first. And if I scroll down here, we have this big yellow box that talks a lot about the differences between Kentucky and Indiana. You can review those. I don't know who has these. I don't want to go into great detail about them. If this is your first year with holding one of those and you have questions, give us a call. We'll talk about it. But Kentucky, if you have more than 26 employees paying into Kentucky, that is required to be electronic. I don't know that we have a thing for Indiana. Okay. So again, we're in reports, W-2 reports and submission. We're on the W-2 state options. You would just click Indiana or Kentucky. And you are going to fill in. Where are the boxes here? That's weird. There's no boxes there to fill in. Maybe my screen's glitched. But on Indiana, well, now it's gone there too.
Refresh the screen.
Yeah, I just clicked on a different one. I'll come back to it.
It's the demo instas.
Well, now I think I've lost connection or something. My whole thing's like, I'm not working. I'm
Yeah.
done.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I know they were working on something for the on-base. So that's why I can scoot now. Adam's here too. Adam,
Well,
too.
cool. This is helpful. Yeah.
It's a blank screen.
There we go. We're back.
Okay.
Okay. Indiana, have your little boxes here you need to populate. And then you would click your generate Indiana and Kentucky. Same way. I don't know why the box isn't showing up, but whatever, it should. You do not need to submit those to us. Those don't need to go to ShareBase. You generate it, have that box checked under configuration, and then you can submit it to the appropriate website or however you do that. Next is your Rita submission. I just realized I didn't add the CCA submission. I need to do that. The Rita submission is under, wait for my screen to catch up.
Can you play some music while we're waiting?
Oh yeah, the Jeopardy music.
That's what we were all thinking.
Need to coordinate that next time.
Okay. So the CCA and the Rita submissions are, you click on your submission here under, this is just under the W-2 report option. So it's the very first one when you go to W-2 reports and submission. And down here you have your CCA W-2 submission file and the Rita submission file. The submission file summary reports, those just generate, I'm pretty sure it's just the PDF. That is nice to have, but it's not actually the one that gets submitted. It's the one that generates when you hit the actual submission file. And again, we do not need those. You upload those directly to Rita. But the box needs to be checked. Okay, so I have this big blue blurb that if you do not submit any cities electronically, you can skip number 38. So If you've been here, if you were here last year, you know that we have the state and local wage report that you can run at the end of the calendar year. That report has everything that you need to submit it. Like you can make copies of it and send it to the cities. And to my knowledge, the cities are still accepting those. Nobody's told me, hey, the city won't take that anymore. It has their social, their wages, and all of that. So you can still use that, but if you have to submit electronically or you choose to, you'll need to create so if you're not going to create any electronics, you can skip 38. If you are creating the submission files for cities, there's this box down here with some information, specifically this information that's in red down here. Because when you go to create the submission file, it asks you these questions, and we have learned over the years what different cities require and how it should be checked. So make sure you read that. So we'll just look at what this looks like. So this is going to be under reports, W-2 report and submission, the W-2 city options. So you will come in here, make sure all of this is correct. And I just want to say, this little drop-down box right here, you used to have to manually type in the tax entity code. I brought this here. I emailed the developer directly and I was like, listen, we need a drop-down box because nobody ever gets this tax entity code. So now you can select from the drop-down box without having to go, what's the tax entity code? So what was happening is everybody was putting in the deduction code.
Yeah.
Which I understand. I probably would have done the same thing. But now you don't have to go and find out what your tax entity code is. It's right here for you. So when you select this, this is what tells it what city I need to run it for. So obviously I got garbly goop in here in this demo, but so you're going to select your city, and then these are the two boxes I'm talking about. Do you need to include amounts for all cities? And do you need to include the city name? This is where we have the notes down here. Whether or not it should or should not be checked. Now we don't have it for every city because we haven't, nobody's told us, hey, this city doesn't like this. So as we learn them, we're putting them in here. So if you have a city that's not listed here and you have a question, call us and we'll see if we can't figure it out. Yes, what's the question?
Okay, Christy Vera, sorry if you already mentioned it, but do we reach out to you if we do not have the RETA and city generate W-2 submission buttons?
You have to be under submission. So if you're under report, you're not going to have that box. But if you click on submission, you should have those options down there. Hopefully that clears that up.
Yeah.
The city tax, the city files, we do have a share-based link for those. I think specifically Cincinnati, we have to reformat that in some way. So in some cities, you guys request to be on a CD. So if that's you, after you've uploaded those files into the share base, please submit a ticket and say, hey, I've uploaded City of Cincinnati. Can you reformat and get back to me? If you need it on a CD, like I do think we have one district that puts it on a CD, you need to request that specifically because our systems manager does that. And that way she knows that it's out there. I do think there's some state, like I think Mount Orb, which I don't know how many of you have that. I think you can upload the file that spits out of USPS directly to them, if I'm not mistaken, or put it on a flash drive or something like that. I think we had one district do that last year. So once you're done with all of your submission files, at this point, please go back into system configuration and uncheck that district will submit own W-2 so it is ready for next year. Not that I'm not going to sit up here and tell you to go check that box anyways, but it will just make it easier if you just go in and uncheck that box under system configuration. We already talked about truncating the SSN, which we recommend. And this will stay on here forever, but once it's on, once you have that saved in configuration, it'll stay there forever. All right, so now we're to the W-2 print file. This was new last year. Last year was the first year we actually printed directly out of USPS, rather than Rhonda and I sitting here forever and formatting them and getting them back to you through OnBase. We do this directly through, it creates a file through USPS. So
So Tanya, last year I know that you stressed about sorting and always sorting each report.
we're going to talk about that.
Okay.
That is still a
Alright.
big deal, but another request that I specifically sent in and said we
Okay.
need this. So under reports, W-2 reports, this is where you're going to go to your mailable forms. So W-2 mailable forms. Okay. You have a save and recall up here. We had these things in USPS Classic, and maybe you used them, maybe you didn't. But if you are not using save and recalls, this is where you're going to want to use it. Because once you have this set up, okay, I got my ID, everything, it's 2024. Okay, this is the big one. My fringe benefits. My sort too. So my sort options are up here. How do I want this sorted? Maybe you want it sorted by building because you sort these out by building and go deliver them to the buildings. Maybe you don't care because you mail everything, and then maybe you want it done by employee name. This is really the district decision how you want it sorted. So once you have that set, your year, okay, then you're down here. The show building and department code, it shows it on the outside of the W-2. So if you do want to sort these and send these out, I would suggest, because after you fold them, you need to be able to see what that that building is. So I would suggest checking that box. If you're just doing it by employee name, you don't have to do that. And the include fringe benefits. This is whether or not you want to include fringe benefits. Hopefully, you have notes from last year, what you've done every other year. Everybody kind of does this a little bit differently. I personally was using it for dues, union dues, because I would get asked that question every year. Well, how much should I pay in union dues? So I just started putting it on there. So it will only print 3 on the W-2. So but you can list as many items as you want. So if you want to list 6 different items, if the employee has all 6 of them, it's going to hit the first 3 and not print the last 3. But if they only have the last 3, the last 3 will show up on their W-2. So once you have all of this set up, and I just have some stuff in here, okay, I've got include my fringe benefits. These are my the benefits. These are the codes I want to show up. Come back up here, and let's just say we're gonna save this. We're gonna say I've already got fringe benefits. I'm just gonna say training. When I type in what I want to call it, and I'm gonna hit save. Now every year you can just come in here and say. So if I leave here, let me leave because I want to show you. I saw a question come in. Did you answer or do I need to?
I'm answering it right now. It might be good to get it in the open too.
Okay.
So Lisa was talking about the BSO and how the districts can submit their own W-2s, but that's a service that HCC does for the districts. So you don't have to worry about that part. We'll take care of it.
And we'll let you.
You're welcome. And we'll even give you the forms.
So if I go back to my W-2 mailable forms, it automatically goes to my most recent. But if So here, I've got some other stuff saved in here. But if I check, if I click on one of my, saved options in here, none of these are good ones because they're all the same thing. I keep saving the same thing. It will automatically populate what so there's a change. My show building and department wasn't checked on my other ones. That way every year you can just plop this in here and this shows up on other pages as well, which is what we didn't have before. Previously, well, we'll talk about it, but we didn't have the save and recall show up on all of the different W-2 options, and that was what was driving me crazy because, well, you shouldn't have to think that hard about it. Okay, so once you have all this set up, you are going to generate your mailable forms. Guess I'll generate it. It shouldn't take too long. So you'll get a little box that says it's been started. And if I scroll up here, well, it was very quick, but you can see up there in the top under the W-2 printing jobs, all of the print jobs that have been sent, and you can see the one that I just did today. Yours will probably say pending for a few minutes. I've ran one payroll on this system, so it's already completed. Once it's done, you have to locate it under reports, W-2 reports, and then it's form output files. And you will see it out here. And it says mailable. That's how I know it's my mailable forms. It has my year, when it was created. And then you will download it. And it downloads a PDF. When you go to print them, first of all, you're going to print one as a test. But it is suggested that when you go to print them, you choose paper source by PDF page size. That way it picks up the correct size and doesn't try to print on letter when it should be legal or whatever. So that should help line everything up nicely.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was like the first question we got last year. I was like adding it to the list. So once you have them printed, you can archive them, which sends it to your file archive under the calendar year reports. And you do that just by clicking on this box right here that says send to file archive. That way if you need them again, it's in your file archive. I was looking for it in a district the other day and I was like, wow, why isn't this in their file archive? It was still sitting out here. They hadn't archived it. So you can leave it sit here for a period of time if you want. If that's easier for you, that's up to you, but please remember to go in and archive it. If you download this and you immediately go, oh, I sorted it wrong, you can delete it and run it again. But like whatever it is that you do as your mailable, you want to be consistent with the rest of your forms because there's a control number on the and you want those to be the same. Because if you have to go back and get a copy of it from somewhere else, you want that control number to be same. I honestly don't know what the IRS does with it. I don't know if it matters, but I don't want to find out. So, all right, so 41 is archiving. So you can create a print file for an employer copy. The only difference is the employer copy is on letter size. So if you're a district that's like, oh, they always come back, they lose the first one, I'm out of paper, I'm just printing it on on regular paper. This might be a good option. Like I said, you don't have to do this, but this would be under reports, W-2 reports, and you're just going to do the report and submission, but you're going to choose forms. But again, you notice we got our save and recall. Oh, and look, there's my training. Oh, that's the one I want because that's got my sorts correct. So that way my printed copy matches my employer copy, and eventually we'll talk about your ESS copy. So I selected all of that, and then I can generate my W-2 forms. And it does the same thing. It comes up here, you can see it's starting. And then once it's done, it's gonna say it's completed, and it's again back out here under form output files. And it's just called W-2 report. And you can actually change the name of it if you want, like when you go to run it, like there's a file name. And maybe you don't need to download this. Maybe just send it straight to your archive so it's there. Let me show you how to change the name if you wanted to do that. So right here, you could say like 2024. So there, now you can see it's got a different name. Help distinguish between the two things. Again, that's optional. You don't have to do that if you don't want. It's just out there. Last year we had a couple of districts still decide that they wanted it to go into on-base as well. You can always reprint by downloading that file from the file archive, like either the employer copy or the mailable ones, to print off another copy. So the on-base, because before it had to be an on-base because that's where you printed from, but it's not like that anymore. So if you want to put them in on-base, you can just follow these steps. There's a ShareBase link that I think Julie created last year. So I don't have the link, but if you want it, I put in an email here, just email on-base and say, hey, I want my W-2s in on-base. But you can, so I think I say, yeah, again, I talk about your box 14, but it's that employer copy that we just created. It's the same thing. So if you create it in the step above, just use the same file. You don't have to recreate it. Okay, so if you are using ESS and you want your W-2s to go into the ESS for employees to access, there is yet another one that you have to run. I swear there should be a one box of run them all. But this is so this is the weird one. It's W-2 reports and it's W-2 archive individual forms. My demo must not be updated. Because there's a save and recall on here now.
What's the version? They might not have updated the version.
I'm on 24.23. I go into your district just to show where that, I won't show anything personal.
Just picking mine because I have the most questions, I know.
You're just right there in front of me.
Put me in front of you.
Is that the right one?
Yeah, that was updated 24.23.0 was updated on 11/22.
I looked at this because I was like, this is where I wanted it. Well, crud. Am I crazy? What's the last version that was sent out?
23.24.0.
2.4?
Oh, sorry, 24.23.0.
I think I'm losing my mind now because I swear I looked at it and it was there.
It's just delayed. It's okay.
I think I'm losing it.
It's okay.
Because then I thought they even sent something out that said it was out there now. Or maybe it's coming.
Maybe it's coming.
I see those updates and some.
I know, because we see it in advance if there's any updates to our requests and when things are going to be released, so it might be coming soon.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is, because this is the one where I was like, we really need the save and recall on here,
Yeah.
because this is. So I will, I'll research that one. So right now, there's not a save and recall, so you would want to make sure that you set this one up just like you did with everything else, like that you do your fringe benefits and that your sorts are the same. And that you select the fringe benefits in the same order. So this one you can actually schedule. So this is the one that allows employees to go out to the ESS. So you could technically run this in the end of December, early January, but you're like, listen, I'm not going to get a chance to mail these until the 15th of January. So I don't want these available in ESS until January 20th. You can schedule this to come out on January 20th. That way they can't access it in advance. And then they're running around telling everybody, oh my God, my W,
Yeah.
asking all those questions. So
Lots of calls. Yeah. Where is it? I'd see it out on ESS, but I didn't get it in the mail.
and I will say, if you are not using ESS and you would like, so these actually get stored under your file archive, under this W2 archive, and it would sort it by name and year. I'm just saying.
It doesn't do it because it's the demo right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't done one. So, just saying. This makes me mad. Okay. So, that was ESS. All right. The calendar year end state and local wage report. This is a report that we created. It should be in your report manager. You do have to have December current to run this. If you have January current to run it, you are not going to get the right information because it pulls from the year-to-date information that's on the payroll item. So once you've switched over to January, it will give you wrong information. So if you move into January and you forget to run this, just go back and make December current. You don't have to reopen it. You just need to make it current to run the CYE state and local wage report. If you are in your file archive, nope, your report manager, and you don't see it, just email us. We can upload it. I imagine at this point, they might be named something different because for a hot minute, they were getting renamed to duck reports because they used to be called duck reports back before this report was created. So you can rename it if you want. I don't know if I have that one in my demo. I'm in the wrong district. Holy cow. Go away. There we go. Yeah, I don't have it in here. But it would be in there for you to run. And you don't have to do anything specific on it. You just generate it. It's already coded to pull in all the correct information. There is a note about NC1 amounts, so just note that if that happens. So once you're done with everything and everything's been loaded to ShareBase, we do ask that you put in a ticket and let us know because we do kind of keep track of everybody. We do need all files submitted to us by January 17th to give our systems manager time to process, find errors, get them fixed, and process and get them submitted by January 31st. If you need an electronic submission file for a city, again, once you've uploaded that into ShareBase, put in a separate ticket. So these are two separate tickets, please, and asking for that to be generated. And please list out which city specifically. You do want to make sure you close December. I got it wrong here again. You want to make sure that you close December at an appropriate time because again, it generates a bunch of files out in your file archive that are going to be beneficial later on. Again, we submit federal and state only. You're on your own for RETA, other states, and any cities. There's our help. If you need help during any of this time, we get very, very busy. So please do enter a help desk ticket just because if one of us is out,
You want the award.
you want the award. But it ensures that you get help in a timely fashion rather than waiting for one specific person who might be tied up with something else. We do have all of our phone numbers listed there if you want to call us directly. We are closed the 25th and 26th. Why do you have January 1st and 2nd?
24th, 25th, and 31st and 1st. I think that's what it was last year.
I specifically remember looking
Hey,
at
if you
this.
get something wrong, we want it to be something like that, and
What's the dates again? Because I put this on my calendar.
24th, 25th, Christmas Eve, Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day.
Okay.
Yeah, cut that second out there.
Yeah, it's just
Okay.
because the way it felt.
The last page is just information that you might need, like what shows up in box 12 and what the different codes mean. Those are something. So you all survived. And I
You
just
too. That was a lot of technical difficulties.
struggle fest today.
Survived it. Look at you. It's getting better and better every year.
So those of you that are, I guess I'll stop sharing my screen now. We answered all the questions, right, in chat?
Yes.
Okay.
And then are you ready for me to stop the recording?
I'm done unless anybody has any questions.
Okay, we're gonna put it on our website, this recording, in case you want to review. There's an awful lot of information. So we'll put it in the, on the usual spot with our training recordings there under that first drop down.
And then for those of you that are here, if you have not already picked up your W-2s and 1099s, we will go upstairs and do that.
Thanks, Nancy. Nancy, pick up our W.